Okay, everybody, let's get started. First, I want to, first I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Yep. Clear? Okay. Then I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have probably 50 people in here, something on that order. I appreciate everybody coming. We also have the live feed going, so that will be streaming the whole meeting. I've got a few things that I want to go through, covering the most asked questions. So I appreciate all the questions that were sent in. I'm going to try to go through some of the most asked ones, and then I'll cover kind of where we're going to go from there. So one of the most covered things was the process of removing the president. First, I want to assure you that the whole board took that process very seriously. It was a slow, methodical process. If you followed the minutes, you saw the different things that happened over time as they were reported in the minutes. We did not attempt to keep anything hidden. And more details, I realize members would like more details of what some of the things were, but we released as much as absolutely possible. The report was out that from the investigation was released. Beyond what was released, we have to abide by labor laws from both Kentucky and Washington. And since Mike was an employee, we are restricted on what can be discussed and released. So that process, like I said, we tried to keep everybody as informed as possible through that whole process. Bylaws review is probably the next one that was talked about the most. And again, if you followed the minutes, bylaws and structural reorganization have been in the minutes for probably close to 3 years. There's been a committee to study them several times, committee reports during our different meetings, and we've gone through different variations of what needs to happen. And really, the main reason for looking at this is because our bylaws were written when there was probably 1,000 members in our organization, and have never really been fully rewritten since that point. There are things in there that have changed in Delaware law, because we are a Delaware nonprofit corporation, so we must abide by Delaware corporate laws. Some of those have changed over years, and we have not kept up with those. So we're looking at that as we look at structural changes. The structural changes really are for the continuity of our sport, of our organization, longevity of our organization, and stability for all the members and our staff. The organization has grown tremendously, and as a board, we want to see that continue, and we want to put things in place so that it will continue to grow, and we can assure services to the membership long-term, and make sure that the organization is there for the juniors that are in it today. One of the things in the bylaws is annual meetings. This is sort of an annual meeting. I would like to see a members meeting at every nationals. That's a little bit of goal of mine. I'll see how well it works. This is kind of the start. As far as the annual meeting is concerned, one of the things that needs to be in that is always financial statements. That financial statement is in the minutes of the July 13th board meeting, available on the website. The reason it's done in July, releasing the financial statements, is it's done after the audit is complete. So once we have a report from our auditors, then we release that. As you know, since I am current president, but I do not plan to run for the position. So we are going to work through reviewing the bylaws and make sure that that is stable before we start a special election. I don't feel it would be fair to anybody to start a special election before we have a complete bylaw structure done. That our goal is to get that done over the next few weeks. I don't know if anybody's noticed. I think Rick has put it on the website. The board has committed to scheduling weekly board meetings now through the end of the year to get that review done. Once we have a draft, we will ask that a Delaware corporate attorney take a look at the draft, make sure it'll be in compliance, and then we will release it in our minutes. And the way the current bylaws read is it is discussed in a meeting, but as you know, we will have to be discussing it in many meetings, but it cannot be voted on in that meeting. It has to be an agenda item for a future meeting. So we will have a time period between releasing the draft in the minutes and our actual vote on the draft. Special election, we are going to try to tighten up, and this will be in the bylaws review as well, because again, the bylaws were written a long time ago. They were written when mail was the only form of communication. So they were kind of done for allowances for time, for things to be mailed out, mailed back, that type of thing. So we want to speed that up for current technology and close the window up a little bit on what a normal election is, as well as a special election. One of the things we're going to do for that is we will make, on the website, there will be a special location for all the candidates to put their statements and their bios and any information on the candidates will all be in a single place on the website. One advantage in putting it on the website is that all of our members will have access to it. If the old system says to use the magazine, if we do that, there's a huge time delay in it, and if somebody misses that, it just isn't as good, and it's going to take a long time if we do that. So we're trying to speed that up and trying to give better access to all the candidates as they want to, for their views to be out. Because we want to make sure that everybody has all the information they need to pick the proper candidate. That covers a lot of a huge portion of the questions that were sent in. You know, there was a lot of people that took a lot of time, and I really appreciate all the effort that was put in to research ahead of asking the questions. Some people outlined a little bit on, you know, what were we looking at when we were doing the bylaws, when we were doing the organizational restructure. You know, we're looking at financial, personnel, every different angle, because we've been looking at this for a long time. Looked at corporate structures of other nonprofits, bylaws of nonprofits of similar size to ours, and used those for comparison for organizational structure and guidelines. So from there, I think that brings us into some questions from the floor. I'm going to ask that I find somebody to carry a microphone around, if I can get a volunteer to do that. But we have a lot of shooters in the room that do not have the best hearing. So what I would like to do is we'll have a microphone available. Anybody that has a question, I would ask that they hold up until they actually have the microphone so that everybody can hear the question, and then we can do our best to respond. We want to be as available to you as possible. Want to keep things as open as possible, and if we cannot answer a question, we'll either find the answer or get you the information. One thing that I missed that was also in the questions and will be addressed in the bylaws is that the split between USPSA and Steel Challenge as a separate organization. Steel Challenge was brought in as part of USPSA and is incorporated into USPSA. And we sometimes forget that when we use the term USPSA, it includes Steel Challenge. It is not a separate division. It is part of USPSA and part of who we are. It is, it's a little different thing, available to a different set of people, but it is part of who we are. So, with that, I'm open to questions.
Okay, good enough.
Nice meeting.
Somebody's gotta go first.
Just like to ask, why hasn't production 15 been taken seriously? Will it? And what do we need to do to get it taken seriously?
Production 15. I'll try to repeat it a little bit. The question was concerning production 15 not being taken seriously. There were some comments in our questions on that, and thanks for bringing that up. We had done a large survey a few years back. We are going to do the same thing again. We're going to do a member survey, get information from all the members. It will be a member-wide survey. I believe it was done with NSSF last time.
2007, NSSF did a marketing review of membership that was not really focused on equipment, gear, or anything like that. It was more focused on income, education level, amount of firearms you buy, all that stuff. It was marketing research. This time we're going to do something different that's going to build a survey system into our website so you have to be a member to log in, do it, and they'll track where you answer. It's going to dig into specific equipment division, future of how things work based on matches that you shoot, work at, so we can dig more about things that have to do with on the ground at matches, the gear that we use, is separate from marketing. Separate from even the equipment surveys like we do at nationals and stuff like that. It's more around future of kind of things. So, and it's going to be working with the rule committee and part of that stuff. It's something that was on the drawing board that got kind of pushed aside over the last 6 months, but it is a focus based on specifically questions around some of the equipment changes that have happened in the last 2 years and equipment changes that people are asking for.
Does that cover your question?
So what happens if people want it? Then what's the process?
The process, we'll review all the information and determine how many people are interested and what level their interest is, and make the best thing we can going forward for the overall organization. I mean, that's really what we're looking for, is what is the best long-term thing for the sport.
And then it would follow the standard bylaws and rules as far as equipment changing to where it would go for a vote. It would be an open roll call vote. If it is a change that is less restrictive or more restrictive, one of the things is that if it's put out, it will be the 90 days that we're supposed to follow for membership review. So if it's something that is out there, that'll be part of that. And one of the things that we've talked about is kind of putting a freeze on anything unless it is federally mandated, some kind of change out there, to to get through special elections, some of the other stuff. So it's not gonna be an immediate, right? But it is something that has been discussed, specifically around the 15 rounds or 141 millimeter mag or 10 rounds or any of that. It has been discussed, but it needs to be more of 15 questions that were sent in out of 90 versus 35,000 members doing a deep dive into what they're looking at versus just 15 emails. So it's not fair to react to a small number when there's a larger number out there. You need to look at what's changes within the industry, changes that are going on between carry optics, limited production. There's more information that's going to be coming out that we can share as far as where the activity is going on throughout the country. You can pull up and start sharing a lot of these reports that are out there so you can kind of see the trend that we're looking at, but it'll be a deep dive into what the membership wants through these surveys versus 10, 15 emails that come in saying, I want production 15 or I want 2011 optic mounted guns and carry optics. So it
let's
needs to
say,
be more input than just a smaller amount.
so let's say you get, I don't know, 500 people answer the question, the majority of them want it. Is that something you guys would take seriously?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Right now, we look at data we have, activities, what's being shot at the club level, what's being shot at majors. All of those things, all that data is what we look at all the time to figure out where we need to go.
Yeah, what I would also say too, I mean, what we're really looking for is data, right? We have anecdotally some people that want 15 round production. We have anecdotally a bunch of people that say leave production alone, don't mess with it anymore. What we don't have is any data that says this is what the majority of the membership wants and or this is what's good for the org.
I think Mr. Strader has a question.
Hey, everyone. This. So it's you brought up.
Please use the microphone.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's not even working.
Can you identify yourself as well?
Not the only one that turned you off.
You all can't hear me?
It's for the video.
Is it picking
Oh,
up?
it's for the video, right? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's not doing anything.
It is.
Oh wait, does that mean something? Does? Oh, all right. Thank you. Thank you.
You think, well, it's like.
So, question, it kind of leads into what you were mentioning about the statistics and things you're looking at and the way the divisions are progressing. I talked to Sean a little bit about this, but I would like to, just to see, I'm not pushing for one way or the other, but I would like to know, has it been discussed among the board of removing a major power factor, just making one power factor 9mm and just calling it good across the board? I'm just curious because I know that mission counts for divisions like limited are a lot of people grabbing a Glock 17 or Glock whatever or inexpensive gun and stuffing it full of rounds because they don't want to deal with the production rules. I get that, but just curious as to whether that's been discussed or whether that's ever been brought up or.
It has been discussed, yes, multiple times actually.
Yeah, I remember also it being discussed. I just want to know if it was still on the table. That's all.
I do remember discussing it with you years ago. So.
Yes.
Well, what would you want major power factor to be if you had to choose?
Well, if I mean, look, I'm not. If I were king for a day, for me personally, I don't want that. I have $17,000 for limited guns. It behooves me for that not to happen, and unfortunately, that's going to be the feedback you're going to get if you're going to pull shooters who have major equipment and major open and major limited and major single stack. Again, that's me. We're going to selfishly not want that. But the point is for me, I see it as an opportunity to have. We constantly, this organization. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we've always been constantly berated of. This is an equipment race. We kind of go down that road of you got to have our super fancy gun and super fancy this and that. To have something that's competitive in the bigger divisions and open and carry optics is actually an exception to the rule, but open and limited, whereas someone could take theoretically a production or standard 9mm pistol and be more competitive against other high-end pistols. I don't know if it would grow the sport. I don't know. I mean, this is just something I'm thinking of out loud. When I shoot a lot in the Area 7. I travel a lot, obviously, to shoot, and I do bring these things up, and especially to new shooters. I mean, let's face it. I am an old guard guy. I don't want to change. I like major power factor. I'm okay with it. But I talk to a lot of new shooters, and we're talking to a lot of people shooting production, and if they found out they could have, instead of 10-round magazines, they could use that same gun and put 23 in it and shoot limited division, they would do that. If they have a carry optics gun and they found out they could put a 2-port comp on their gun and get a 30-round magazine, they would shoot open and have a relatively, competitive pistol. So I'm not saying I don't know if it will build membership. I think it would drive people, especially newer shooters, to these more elegant divisions. I don't know what that does for production, to be honest with you. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about, I'm sure this question may come up about the production and the route it's going. Some people like it, a lot of people don't. And, it would shake up the divisions and it would shake up the membership. But in the long run, I kind of wonder what would it do for people buying equipment that normally wouldn't be even shooting in those other divisions and now they're good. So trust me, I am not for it, but I do see the potential growth for it possibly. Yeah. If it's being discussed, that's great. That's all I want to know. But thank you for your question. Are there any more questions from anybody? I'm just handing it off. I didn't know. He didn't have his hand up. He doesn't have it.
You got one?
Yeah, he's got it.
Okay, I got one after you.
Okay, first, Matt Nash here. I just want to thank the board. I know you guys volunteer a lot of time. I know it's sacrifice time with your family. It's very valuable to all of us. So one, I want to thank you for the ordeals you've had to go with removing the president. I know that's a little added time that you probably didn't want to address, and it's probably not fun for the sport for you guys. So appreciate that. Also, Sherwin, appreciate you stepping up. On the issue of stepping up the president, I understand that for 3 years we've been going through some bylaw considerations. Bylaws are like a guiding beacon for where the organization is and kind of make sure that we always have our identity. And I understand some things we need to change for Delaware law. But if we're talking about structural changes and big fundamental bylaws, why wouldn't you let a president in a special election run on those issues so the members can vote that vision in? So the new president can then preach that vision that this is what the members want to the rest of the board to decide.
Because it would be the same as what we just spent a bunch of time and money changing.
But you just said we have a bunch of new members, right? So and you guys aren't polling those members. So the best way for you to really understand what the members want is to hold a special election, let the president candidates run on the fundamental issues for the organization. I mean, right now, we don't have an elected president that ran on issues. We have a president that is definitely answering the call, and I appreciate that. But we don't know what his vision was, and we didn't vote on that vision. So with all these new members, why not have presidents run and then vote on those organizational structural changes, and then the members have a voice? Because if we take action on all the 3 years of discussions without that in place, the members really don't get a voice in that. So, I mean, right now it's probably not the time.
And that's why the bylaws will be sent out in a draft before it's ever voted on by the board. The complete bylaws, any changes, that will all be sent out in a full draft after it's been reviewed by corporate attorney. It will go out before the board votes on it. So there will be a discussion period. We're all available. Everybody can voice their opinion on what those changes are. A part of the reason is so that everybody running for the position knows exactly what the position is when they're running for it.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
Yes.
So one of the things that we've been doing for the last couple of years is trying to figure out what the right next structure for the corporation is. Right now, I'll give you an example. In the last presidential election, there was a person that ran that had no corporate experience, no supervisory experience, but was running for president. And if that guy had been elected, he would have had single signing authority for checks, single signing authority for contracts, total control of the corporation, total control of the employees and so on. And the board is a strategic body. We don't manage people, but we think that could potentially be pretty bad for the org. So this conversation has been going on about how do we make sure we've got a sustainable structure. We're not running out of somebody's third bedroom anymore. We're a more than $1 million a year nonprofit with 35,000 members and services we got to deliver. And we want to run it like a business. So part of the structure of the organization, or the structure we've been having, the discussion is how do we make sure that the corporation is set up for the future so that we can focus on running the sport. And the challenge that we run into is if we were to make this change during the course of a president's term, we'd be screwing that person out of whatever job they ran for, right? We'd be changing their job in mid-flight. If we did it in the middle of an election cycle, I don't know, but that doesn't seem like a really smart thing to do. So we're viewing this window of time right now where we've got an interim president as a sweet spot where we can do this and do what we think is the right thing for the org without hiding the fact that we're changing the job description from the people that are trying to run for the job.
I can appreciate what you're saying, what we think is right. You should be saying, what is the best thing for the members? What do they think?
That's absolutely.
Remember that the members elected all the people that are sitting up here. So it's not that.
Not the current president.
And that does count because that's what you guys elected us to do.
So,
And this discussion didn't just happen now. This has been happening for 2.5 years, 3 years, about 3 years. And during the last term, when these discussions came up in the board meeting, the current president at that stage was not that keen on changing anything because why would he change something that was already in place and that benefited him? And obviously, there were lots of things that were in place that I didn't feel, or that we didn't feel, I'm talking for myself now, that we didn't feel were right for the organization. So that's why this timing thing has come up now. But it started 3 years ago. It didn't start because of the situation we're in now.
And let me address, because you made a comment that disturbed me just a little bit right there. You know, that we were going to do something that is against what's best for the membership. And let
me rephrase it. That's what I said, to get rid of exactly my quote. I would say you may be doing something that does not speak on all the members. Because we have not voted a president that has indicated the vision they want for a structure or ran on those issues so you could hear a larger discussion on it. You haven't polled it either. Now, I understand maybe you're releasing the minutes, but how much opportunity are we going to have to give you feedback on it before you vote on something like that?
It'll be meeting to meeting, which has generally been about 30 days.
And I have one more follow-up question on that. If you guys do restructure something and put someone in a position, like Bruce says, with skill sets that run the organization, I understand that, you can appreciate that. Can you guys commit today that the president will always have a checks and balance over any decision that next position may hold, meaning like veto power or something like that? So that position is never more powerful than the president itself?
Any position that we put in place would report to the board. So the board's always going to be that check and balance. There's not going to be any single position that would have veto power, as you said, over any other position.
Well, I'd ask that you guys just explore when you're looking at the structure, ways to give better checks and balances so the members.
That is by far
the number one thing.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
That's hours and hours of discussion, what you just said now.
Yeah.
On virtually every single line item of the bylaw. How can this be better monitored? How can we make sure we don't have somebody that takes a situation that the board wouldn't approve, etc.
Yeah, I would add, this is just Bruce speaking, I'm not representing the board here, but I think there's at least 4 goals. And one of the things we're trying to work through is exactly what those checks and balances should be. I think again, just Bruce, we should have a person who's professional at running the business side of things. We should have a president who's elected by the membership that represents the membership and the sport. We should have a board that the fiduciary duty is to make sure that we have a sport to compete in. And ultimately, the 4th goal is for all that to be invisible to you guys, so all you have to do is go shoot. We've had a lot of chaos in the last however many years. We'd love to have a period of no chaos, right? We'd love to have it that you don't have to worry about the books or the bylaws or any of that. Just go play. And that's really the ultimate goal that we're trying to accomplish.
By far.
Can I add something?
Yes.
For the last 4 or 5 years, we've operated on what I would call a strong president system. A lot of power was invested in the president. And in the last few months, there's been great discussion on bringing more power back to the board of directors, the area directors, as that check. Whether it's CEO, president, but ultimately things like signing contracts, reviewing contracts, commitments, relationships. That CEO or president will do the legwork, but it's coming back to us with a more hands-on to say, this is what we feel is best for the organization, and give the green light. Am I interpreting that correctly, gentlemen?
Yes.
All right, I got the next one here. My name is Luke Faust from Minnesota. So a little bit of change in direction. Today I just got finished shooting. My final stage was shot 30 minutes after sunset, 40 minutes after range close. This is the first day of 6 days we got here. What kind of plans do you guys have to make sure I'm not shooting another stage in the dark, and or other shooters aren't shooting more stages in the dark, because it really degrades competitive activity?
The backup stage that's up at the top is being discussed actually with Troy and Shannon right now as to what the issue is. There's a stage that's running 45 minutes less. Outside of that, the schedule is pretty close to where it was at. And it's backup. It's either we drop a stage or we throw 4 or 5 more bodies on there. It doesn't necessarily fix the problem. The problem is that there's a stage that's taking much longer than it should. So the fix is you lose the stage.
So is that plan to be done before the next 5 days of nationals here?
It's in discussion with Troy and Shannon. We talked about it earlier. We went up there, we ran timers, we stood there, we watched. The fix is we lose one of the double bay stages. That speeds that area up. It's not something that we want to do. There's not a lot of way around it right now. Timing isn't working.
I turned it on, but you're shooting through smoke at that point. It still sucks.
The timing is the issue on there. So, I mean, we cannot fire around in the state of Alabama on a public range until 9 a.m. You can't start earlier, and I can't change when the sun sets. So the only thing we can change is less stages. Less stages means you're still standing ready to shoot. There's only so much time that we can do it. So it's in discussion right now. The only reason that we're not in the public discussing it, the three of us, is because we're sitting up here right now. So working on this.
My name is Frank Garcia. I'm from Florida. I'm here to represent several hundred members that have a lot of concern and they feel like they have no say-so in what's going on. I kind of feel the same way, being a member since 1980. I didn't want to say my age, but anyway, bottom line is, from the outside in, it doesn't look good to have a change of bylaws right before an election. It just doesn't look right. And by the way, I don't need for you to answer me, because from what I see, you guys have your mind made up, so you don't have to answer me at all. I'm here in behalf of the members. A lot of members, I get emails, all the time. Hey, what's going on? So it's not my job to answer these people. It's your job, but apparently they feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. So I'm here to represent them, and they feel that it's just not right. It doesn't look right from an international basis to be America, democratic United States of America, changing bylaws right before an election. That's step number one. Okay, step number two is, I've been the match director for a lot of matches, World Shoot 2014. I've been in the background of the nationals. I've been in our place. I've been quiet, but I know everything that's going on, every step. because I'm not a micromanager. So I step back and watch. I have dealt with a lot of presidents over the years, even before you guys were on the board. And that is a 24/7 job of being president of the United States Practice Shooting Association. Okay? In my business, somebody sends me an email and I don't like it, I delete it. If you're president of the organization, you have to answer it whether you like it or not in a politically correct manner. Very difficult job. It's a job that at $100 grand a year, I wouldn't run for it at all because of the.
Run for 50.
Yeah. So I'm not running for president. I'll tell you that right now. Okay. I'll help the president. I'll help the organization as much as I can. That I have for many years. There's a lot of shooters out there that are in this organization because of me guiding them towards membership and all that. So I'm not in it for that. I'm just in it for, you know, there are members watching, a lot of members watching that right now at home that can't really be here or don't have a say-so in this. So what I think the right thing to do is get the election done with, do your thing, get the president elected. We have more time now to make it right. Right now, the way that it looks like it's being done from the outside is not correct. You guys don't have to answer me because you've already made up your mind. I can see that already in your faces. But I just wanted to represent several hundred members. Thank you very much.
Let me respond to that just a little bit, because I do know that all the board members try to discuss this when they're at matches and that kind of thing. And I'm not hearing that the board members are getting emails.
Send us those emails.
You know, please talk to us. Please tell us what you want. We're not getting the emails from, from this. We're not getting them. We're not hearing them. So the flow is not coming. We need that communication because we represent you. That's the bottom line. We want to do what's best for the membership, and we are going to try to get that information. If it's done when we're shooting at a match, that's what we've got to go by. So if we don't get the response, no emails, all we can do is what we get from face-to-face communication.
I've had a bunch of emails that are supportive of the bylaw changes and supportive of what we're doing and supportive of, the emails that came in with the process of moving the president were in the hundreds and hundreds of emails that came through. And I don't remember the exact percentage, but like 75 to 80% of them were in favor of what we were doing. So, and that's why I respectfully say, if you're getting emails from people that are not happy or feel they're not being represented, send them to us or send them to the whole board. That's what we're here for. I don't feel that we don't represent. I go to a lot of matches. I talk to everybody. In fact, most people can't get me to shut up. So, right? It's true, right? Yeah. If you know me, you know I talk. And so I guess I'm a little bothered by the fact that you feel that we don't represent, because I feel we do. And I've talked to many people at your range. I walk around there on days we're not shooting. I feel that we do make an effort. And we as a board are trying to make more of an effort. We talked about it last night for probably an hour. Trying to get out to more matches, trying to get out to more places. That's what we're sitting here tonight for. In fact, it's the second time ever that our board has all been present at the same time. We're going to go to Steel Challenge. We're going to go to the other matches, the Nationals. We came down here early so that we could do this. I feel we're doing a lot to represent, and I feel we're doing a lot to open up. Our minutes are more detailed now than they've ever been, well, certainly in the last few years. Anybody who's out there that's talked to me, if I ever turn anybody away, and most of the members are the same. Most of the board members are the same. So take that as how you want to. But there's a lot of work that goes into all these things. We're not doing this. We're bored. We don't have anything to do with our day. I promise you that. So tomorrow when I'm out the race, come chat. Let me know.
Yeah, I'd like to point out too that the correspondence I've gotten from Marriott members and from me going to matches have all been very positive about the changes, because most of the members, at least in Area 80, tonight 81% of my emails were supportive of what we're doing. I keep track of it. They don't like the idea of a centralized figure having the keys to the store, having the checkbook, be able to sign contracts. They want to see more board oversight on what that individual's doing for, because a collective group of people looking out for the best interest of the org is what the members I've talked to once instead of one person. So that's actually the direction that we're discussing.
I'd like to say, Frank, you've got my contact information. You've got members in Area 6 that are in Florida. Feel free to give my phone number, my email to anyone. I answer all my emails. I answer all my phone calls.
I'm Mason Lang. Anecdotally,
We can't hear you.
anecdotally, the sorts of things that make people not feel heard are things like proper calibration, passing by a fat majority when it wasn't an actual solution. Just want to throw that out there. In terms of the structural changes, I mean, I think it's good that you guys have all formally acknowledged, obviously, through both voting and verbal concessions, that the last president was there, probably an error, probably not the guy for the job. Sort of realized that through some watershed and a couple different points, but he was elected just like not even 4 years ago. So, what's easier to turn over, a presidency or an entire board of people who don't represent your interests? Is I suppose the question, right? Like, why are we doing organizational changes that don't do anything to empower the members more than they already are? Realistically, like we see how you guys vote. It's not always good.
Hi, Keely here. Just a comment, because I know you said that the minutes are more detailed than they've ever been. I'll say as someone reading them, I don't know what is going on. It's like so not detailed, it's not even funny. I don't know how my area director is speaking on the issues. I mean, all I can see is the vote. That's not helpful to me. I need to know if I should be voting that guy in again. I don't know. I love you, Lee. But I want to know how you're speaking on things. What's your opinion? I don't know that. Is there a way we can make that more detailed?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. We had a work group last night actually talking about this. And of course, it's always a balance. There's a difference between a transcript and bullet points, right? So you don't want to just hire a stenographer and steno a 5-hour meeting that goes into 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time.
I think he's trying to tell you something.
Right. But
5 hours.
The
It was only
discussion.
10:30 last night.
We spent probably 30 minutes last night talking about what that trade-off is between, Lee said this. Sherwin said X, instead of just motion for X, vote, 8 to 0.
Yeah.
So yes.
Would there be a way to maybe would there be a way to live stream this except for, obviously executive session? I know you guys can't do that, but would there be a way just so we could keep updated on what's going on? I mean, you have to have an in right now to find out what you guys are talking about, really. I look at the minutes every single month and I'm like, what does this even mean? I literally don't know what you guys were even talking about at the time.
That would be what I would love to have you send an email directly to your area director. What is it?
Okay.
So on issues that get passed without an actual arbitration period for members to bitch, moan, and complain publicly and make a scene about things like, for example, proper calibration, what are we to do about that? That passed overnight. So, I mean, it's the default answer.
That was probably
Go ahead.
the reason that passed the way it was because it was looked at entirely as a benefit to the shooter, trying to improve, taking complaints from people saying, we had a problem with a popper and I lost this or whatever.
Don't use the phrase.
In order to correct that, we were listening to what everybody was saying. This was viewed as something that we could do by changing the procedure. It really was just changing our calibration procedure. Really didn't affect anybody's shooting rules or anything like that. But it was one more check to try to make sure the benefit went to the shooter. So we looked at it as a big improvement that we're trying to eliminate the problems you've had. That was why it passed, and because we all felt it was a benefit to the shooters, and there was no downside to the shooter, we wanted to put it in place right away, as soon as possible, to prevent repeats of what had happened in the past. So that's why it passed the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd add three things to that. One is, any member has the right to attend a meeting if they want to. It's a little weird right now while we're doing it all on Zoom, but we've had people attend meetings in the past as guests, and you can sit down and see what we're doing and how we're doing it. That's your right as a member.
Where's the access to that so that we can see it? Can we get it like posted up somewhere that we can actually find? Because I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, it's in the bylaws, and I think the process is to either reach out to the president of the office and ask to be a guest at a meeting. Second thing I'd say is we get a lot of feedback about executive session, and that may be part of the reason you don't know what's going on. And people think we're hiding things in executive session. We're actually not. We're required to go into executive session where there are legal matters, where there are financial matters, or where there's employee or discipline matters. We have to protect the organization. Outside of executive session, everything we do, and regardless of executive session, every decision we make is on the record. And as Sherwin says, we're trying to make the record clearer so that you know the thinking of things besides decisions. And the last thing is, if you don't know what's going on, contact your area director. If your area director is non-responsive, I think this is a great bunch. But if they're not responsive, contact me. I'll tell you what I can.
I guess, is there any consideration for live streaming it though? The fact is, like, I shouldn't have to email my area director at every, drop of a hat if I'm a little bit confused. I mean, Lee, I'm assuming you don't have that much, I know you have time, but not time to answer every single Area 7 member, question 24/7 if we're all confused. Because there's more.
But for you, I have all the time.
There's more, I think there's more confusion than you guys realize. And I think that it should just be easy. You should be transparent. I shouldn't have to just email and, just every little detail. If you could just make it transparent in the first place, it'd be pretty convenient.
I think part of the issue too, and this is my perception, and I'm happy to be calibrated if I'm wrong. My perception is that about 95% of the members just want to go shoot a match. And there's 3 or 4% of the members that want to shoot an area match or a major or a nationals or shoot internationally. And there's maybe 1% of the members that actually care what goes on the board. And we're okay with that. You shouldn't have to care what goes on the board. The focus ought to be on going out and playing and having fun. So we're happy to tell you what we're doing, but my belief anyway is most people care more about just going and shooting.
I guess I'll just ask it again though, is there any consideration for live streaming it on the non-executive session parts?
Yes, we've talked about it. I don't know that we landed on something, but it's been a discussion.
Okay. Because you guys are live streaming right now, right?
Yes.
So you're set up to do it. You got all the technology. You got to figure it out.
Well,
It'd be
we're
just
live
like a
streaming the
podcast.
annual meeting for the membership, which is different from the board meeting.
Okay.
You know how many members are watching it right now?
How many?
98 at the most.
35,000. And that's one of the things that,
I got a quick one. It kind of goes back to Frank's questions about emails. The downrange newsletter was sent out with a link about this meeting. There were 67,000 email addresses and had a 33% open rate. Then we sent an individual email to every live email address out of 35,000, 32,000, a little over that. 16,000 people opened the email. 299 clicked on the link to fill out the questions. There was less than 80 submitted. The opportunity was sent in 2 different formats. On the live streaming part of it, you can't put an executive board meeting on a public platform. This is a public platform that we're using for this because it is the annual membership meeting. There are things in there that can't be discussed on a public platform. And if you open it up to 35,000 people on a Zoom meeting, that they have to log in, verify that they're a member, there's some limiting things to that. So yes, there's an opportunity to put a lot more transparency into things, but to sit and live stream it, I would say there's probably some issues with that you probably can't do. It isn't like public offering when the CEO of a company goes out there and stands out at a news conference. It's a little different there. So, but
there's also a lot of data that gets discussed in, it's not executive session data, but that's data that we don't necessarily, proprietary data that we don't necessarily want the whole world to know. Not that you guys should, if you ask us, we'll tell you the numbers or whatever, but we don't necessarily want it open to a public viewing per se.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, I just follow up to kind of on the Frank's point as well as mine. In Article 3, we clearly outline our objectives as an organization. And I feel like that is our identity, right? That's what our founding fathers wanted, you know, that created this sport. And yes, we can evolve, like Bruce said, and maybe it's time to have people with more business minded, but I don't think we should treat it like a business. We are still a sport. And we should still be promoting that competitive equity. So like, I get a little discouraged when probably Troy has to spend time trying to think about how he can incorporate appendix carry, where that doesn't really promote athletes for international competition or really probably a high competition here, but it does bring a lot of people into our culture that probably don't care about our DNA, right? People that want to just run and gun, don't really care about the sport. I mean, I've seen people in my club that don't even shoot for score because their equipment's out of alignment, right? Like it doesn't meet the standards. So they just don't shoot for score. Like I don't know if that's really the people we should be growing just to get membership dues and grow this organization. Because eventually we're going to lose our identity. And we're just going to be a range. We're going to be a range where people can come with flashlights that weigh 50 ounces. You know, we can, you know, wear appendix holsters, ankle holsters, or whatnot. I mean, where do we draw the line? Like, I would ask that the board consider, anytime you make a decision, look at Article 3 and say, is it in the best interest of those objectives? Because there have been some that I have seen come forward, and I don't want you guys to spend time on because they don't clearly meet those objectives. And then my last question for you guys is, why would you guys not put bylaws on the ballot when you run the special election so all the members can vote on bylaw changes?
You know how many bylaws there are that would have to be on that, and how long that process would take, and how complex that would be?
There are fundamental bylaw changes that change our identity, though. You can put those ones on there.
Just for us last night, where we broke it up into 4 groups, was roughly a 3-hour meeting to discuss just some of the changes. And it's not because I don't agree with what you're saying. It's just it would be an unbelievably enormous administrative process. And I don't, you know, this thing of changing the bylaws that we keep talking about, it's not like we're rewriting the whole bylaw. It's only tiny parts of it that are going to change. Probably the most significant change is just the position of the president versus an executive director or whatever title gets put into that, right? But that's not different from when Phil was when Phil was president, of having an executive director at that stage. It's actually probably similar to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but it's, I'm sure it's really going to kick me from the side. But changing, you know, having everybody vote on everything. I mean, we can't even get people to respond to a presidential election or respond to an area direction more than about 28 to 29%. So you put a bunch of bylaws out there and trying to get people to vote. Not that I wouldn't be, I'm a huge fan of surveys. I mean, we've discussed this at length. I've been trying to get surveys for 2 years and was being blocked at every step, and now we're able to do it. But trying to change the bylaws under those circumstances would be an almost impossible task. And not only that, but you know, you bring up the things with changes. So revolver, should we keep revolver? Should we keep L10? Well, there's 20 people that, so literally 2 people gave me 2 opposite opinions in the 2 seconds from saying it. And that's the issue. Should we have it, I'm going to use the term, but Sherman's going to kick me for saying this. Should it be a majority vote that decides whether we go to 15 rounds or 10 rounds? Should we keep revolver for the 22 people? I mean, should revolver? 1.5% or something like that? You know, but the way
I didn't bring up revolver, I brought up
No, but I'm talking about just how you decide something like this. There's 50 or 60 people in the room. If we took a vote in the room of who wants to keep this, and you know, 51% said this, does that mean that 49% are going to get hurt by that? And to use your example of the weights and all that stuff, changing the appendix carry, those are for specific people, but it doesn't affect you and I. How many people are shooting flashlights today?
Actually, Matt, to answer your question, number one is to promote amateur, national, and international athletic competition. Number two,
So we should be going
is
to
to
15 rounds,
educate
not
the
appendix
public
carry.
on the benefits of practical shooting. It's two things. Appendix, flashlights, that is a practical part of it. If you look at the actual history of this organization, you look at the founding back in 1974, 1975, the Columbia Conference, when they put out there, they talked specifically about holsters. They talked specifically about what IPSC and USPSA were about, and it's practical application of firearm, not the amateur and the national part of it. That's two separate things. Do we form teams? Do we do the IPSC for World Shoot? Do we do the matches that Frank has coming up and stuff? Yes, we do. But we also put on 5,000 club matches a year that have people who have zero interest in that part of it, have zero interest going to a level 2 match, have zero interest in ever going to a match. That is the practical side where those guys who come out to your club at a place that's under a USPS umbrella rule set where they feel safe to go out and do something with their carry gun, with the gun that they put on their home stand and practice that stuff. Should we exclude them?
I think
Yes
we
or
should
no?
inspire them to follow our identity as a sport. And they would
Part of the
A, realize
sport is to
appendix is not
educate them on the
ideal.
practical use of a handgun.
The
Being
guy
able to
that,
manipulate a handgun
For
at
a
high rates
sport,
of
you gotta go
shooting.
back up to objective number one. For a sport, it is not competitive to shoot with an appendix carry. It just really isn't.
it doesn't say it has to be competitive. It says to educate, improve practical skills. It's that in the club level, that guy you're talking about that doesn't want to shoot for score, he's still out there to improve his skills. If he's a member, we still represent him as a member as well.
Even if
I
it's not.
understand that. I'm just saying we should probably inspire them to the vision of being a sport, not necessarily just an event. Why are we not just on a public range for people just to come out and shoot? We have structure, we have goals, we inspire people to be their best, right?
To improve. It doesn't say we have to have, everybody has to keep score and everybody has to be competitive. There's a lot of people that
Vision, I guess, that I
want to
focus on.
practice, and we need to provide a safe place for them to practice.
Yeah, at the same time, I think if I'm hearing what I think you're saying, I'm 1,000,000% in agreement with you. We've had
A
Louder?
little louder.
sorry, people ever ask me to be louder. If I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing, I'm agreeing with you because we've been asked over the years, gosh, what's keeping us from having 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 members? And I think the thing that keeps us from having that many is we'd have to water down the sport so much that it would be something completely different,
Exactly.
right?
You have to
So-
use it if you're gonna hold it.
Yeah, I know.
That's what she said.
I hate microphones, sorry.
Exactly my
So the challenge is keep it safe, fast, and fun, safe, fair, and fun. Keep it competitive. Keep it focused on moving the goalposts forward in terms of equipment because that's what the founders were all about. Let's find the best solution to the problem and not water it down, but still make it accessible to everybody. And that's sort of been the premise behind the umbrella concept. We thought, hey, great, we'll keep the U.S. Practical Shooting Association, we'll have the USPSA rules for the hardcore, gamer, all about the speed kind of thing. We've got the Steel Challenge, which is good for entry level, it's good for juniors, it's good for less abled people, it's still about speed. We'd love to have a conversation about what the other evolutions under the umbrella might be, so that we have more options for people that want to play different kinds of games without watering down this game.
You got a question way in the back there. If you can get back.
Yeah, I'm not good at this, I don't do this too often. I find it kind of offensive for everybody to pick on the board. The board is an elected people, are they not? That is elected by the membership, so they are elected to represent the people that elected them in that position. So for you to say that they're not here to represent us, I think it's insulting to them. I mean, you're a new member, correct? In the board?
Yes.
How'd you get elected?
I got elected.
So the membership elected you to the board.
That's
right?
100% true. How many other people got elected on this that actually ran against somebody?
I really don't know. If there's nobody that ran against somebody, that's the membership's fault for not putting somebody up to run against them.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm not a big competitive shooter. Still, you know.
Oh, you're a big competitive shooter.
I'm here to enjoy myself and have the camaraderie of shooters and see what you guys compete. I enjoy that. For you to say that I should be allowed to play in this sport because I'm not a competitive shooter is insulting. I've been here for 5 years building these stages for you guys to play with.
I didn't say that.
But you were looking for sport. I thought everybody was serious about the sport to be part of the sport.
I said, I don't want to lose identity that we're a sport, and we should be inspiring people.
Every sport has amateurs.
We should always, we should inspire people always be the best version of themselves. Some of my mentors tell me.
I agree with you 100%.
I'm not going to be Mason this match, but he's telling me to aspire to be my best version.
And I'm never going to be any of you guys.
And I think John and Matt, hey, John made his point. Matt, you've asked your questions. Phil, you got a question?
Yes. So not everyone here is going to like this answer because I was going to kind of hit on what John's saying. I know everyone, almost everyone on the board. I don't think I met this gentleman from Area 8 officially, but I know everyone on the board. I've worked with a lot of you on the board. I have no doubt, and if you have doubts as members, I can assure you that they have the best interest, or they have what they're using their experience to keep the best interest of the organization at hand. I truly believe that. But the problem is, and the problem with what we mentioned, and in retrospect, Matt asked about putting the bylaws on like a Prop 60. When you go to do your elections for your representatives, you have your representatives, and you have like these weird, allow Frosty to be served in school district 17. These weird things that you don't really read, but you're just like, oh yeah, I'll just put yes there. Right? So I'm not saying the people in this room would do that because the people in this room have real interest and real involvement in the sport. But the problem is if you start putting bylaws into a ballot, let's say, and it goes out to the membership. But first off, you're not getting a huge percentage of the ballots back. So there's a lot of membership that just aren't voting, for one. But the big problem is the second problem with that is you're now introducing an aspect of a bylaw change that your general member, honestly, wouldn't know what the difference was before or after the change. So they may be blindly just putting something that they're not educated on to do it, where most of the people that that are this involved and ask the hard questions and get involved with the board, they do understand that. But you can't take for granted that the entire organization is going to know what the board is talking about. We will because we get involved. But that's just kind of my take on that. I personally thought, that's a good idea, and I thought, holy shit, I don't want some of these crazy people voting on things they've never heard of. So I get it. I get the understanding. And the appendix thing and the flashlight thing, trust me, I was the number one proponent against that. I thought it would have been a good level 1 exemption kind of thing, but again, I think that might be something where the membership would like a little bit more hands-on involved in what the decisions that were being made there and whether or not it could have been done or if it had been done as a level 1 restriction. I get the appendix thing because it's a nightmare running matches and having to explain to people where their holsters can and can't be. So that actually made it a lot easier on the level 1 match side. I get it. I understand why things are being done the way they're being done. I think the main concern from the membership I've heard is not the decisions that are being made that, like has been mentioned, that maybe they're not as involved with certain types of decisions as they should be. One suggestion would be, we have a website, would be to put that agenda. I know you guys have an agenda at each board member meeting. Have a very clear agenda as to what's going on. I don't know if you do this yet or not. Have it on the website. Have it on the front page of the website before each meeting. I don't know. Are we doing that now? We are doing
there. Yeah, it's there.
Then.
It's when you get to the rule change part of it, the details about what is being presented to the board and voted on has not been.
Gotcha.
And that is the issue that we ran into in 2019 or 2020 and 2019.
Yeah.
Is that it said rule review, but you didn't see the whole presentation, documentation, and all this stuff until after the fact. That is a mistake that has been discussed. As we go into that part of it, it needs to be much more visible.
Hey, look, I understand the concerns Frank has. I actually agree. I mean, it doesn't look, you guys are making bylaw changes. I know why. You know, we're not dumb. No one wants to say it. I will say it. I'm not scared to say it. We got to a situation where our old bylaws put someone in power that, you know, it almost fit the organization in a big way, and we want to try to correct that. I understand that. Doing it before an election does have complications. And I have no doubt that you all have the best interest of the organizations to make sure it's safe and protected and it's got checks and balances. But, you know, I have to have faith in the organization that if those appendix changes are going, or these bylaw changes are being proposed, they will be made very, very public to the membership, as in like on the front page. That's the first thing you see when you go to the website, or whatever the case may be. So there can be visibility, and then maybe get more members involved, and actually have what the bylaw was and what the bylaw is changing to. So there's real visibility as, okay, this is how it was. That's what was broken, and maybe even an explanation. You know, because I told my local congressman, like, why are you guys putting these crazy props in where I don't know what problem you're trying to solve? So that was my deal. This is the old bylaw. This is what we're proposing, and this is the possible problem we're trying to avoid. And then people have some visibility as to what it is. And then they can get back with their area directors, what are my areas? Get back with their area directors and say, hey, you know, I looked at the bylaw changes. I'm a concerned enough member to where I read through all this shit, and a lot of people aren't going to. And this is what I think about these. And then, you know, obviously it's going to be a lot of input. But if you give yourself 30 days, it's enough time to accumulate the information you're getting from as many members as you can. And again, it's not going to be a huge pool of members, but then it kind of gives you a direction to go where you're making the best decision for the organization, and a lot of it hopefully will be based on good feedback you get from the members. But again, it has to be something that's, I mean, I want to be annoyed by it. I want to go to USPSA to check my scores, and I'm like, shit, bylaw thing. Okay, I'll read it. It has to be something where it's in your face, because you won't know. You've been there. If you don't put it in your face, then members aren't going to get involved. 95% of us just want to go shoot matches and let the hell alone. But there's 5%.
98.5.
Yeah, probably, yeah, you know, but that's the point. So, I don't think I had a question there.
Oh, we actually blamed you for this because you should have fixed it when you were president.
Well, I was one of the board members like candy. I couldn't get him. I mean, Sherwin was my only guy, my best guy. Right?
Bruce.
Oh, Bruce, right. Well, yeah, but I didn't have Chuck first.
We talk about you.
Bruce wasn't there the whole time. Chuck was Bruce.
Yeah, it's usually referred to in an executive session when we vote.
Right. You guys are doing a great job. I know it's a tough position. Trust me, I get it.
It's all your fault, Phil. You brought me back in.
I know. It's all
I thought
my
I was
fault.
out, and you sucked me back in.
Yeah, but anyway, that's all I got. Sorry.
I'm trying to do it in order.
This is kind of going back to his point about putting stuff in your face. I mean, I'm looking at the email right now from your downrange, and at the bottom it says major match schedules. Why not put something board meetings? And you know, I've done email marketing and built websites. You can put a separate page where it's just accessible to the members, where you have a video of that board meeting, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on StreamYard or whatever. You can live stream that Zoom call. So it'd be easy. It's just to put it bottom of the email. They log in to their membership website, and there should be a page where they can watch the meeting.
Hi. I just want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to actually be part of it. In all my years of being a USPSA member, I think this is the first time I've ever been asked for input or any kind of rule changes or anything, and I thought that was a really convenient way for you to have a link and have us put in our name and then our information. And I've had some communication with Sherwin, and I just want to say that was really cool, and I hope that's the direction you're going to continue where we do get to have that input, because I've never been asked, never, for any kind of input on any kind of rules or, hey, what do you think about this? And I shoot at in Oklahoma, there's 2 major clubs, and there's never been a discussion, hey, what do y'all think? And so if y'all are doing that at that level, and that's the way you're going to continue, I hope you continue to do that. Second, don't get rid of a revolver. I can tell you exactly how it's related to practical shooting. I just came off of doing revolver for like 7 weeks, and I can tie it back to how it's helped me in perioptics with my last few matches, I've improved my percentage greatly, just in carry optics, because I shot revolver and my trigger control. So I don't care if there's only 1.9 of us shooting it. There's no reason to get rid of a division other than it's annoying for people. Too bad. The last thing is while y'all are doing these bylaws and the changes and updates and things, I'm hoping you don't lose your focus. Article 3, and this was already a little bit talked about, is to promote the amateur. And there's been a lot of promotion like at Nationals with a whole bunch of super squad stuff. And I think that's a little slanted. And that's and I'm going to use round numbers, that's 5%. There's 95% of us out here that don't do it for a living. And I hope you don't lose focus on what those are and that you're not changing those bylaws. The second one there says to educate the public. I would like to see USPSA get more involved with educating the public. Jake, I think it's Jake's article. He has an article, I think the last one was updated in 2020 about what is USPSA, how to become a shooter in USPSA. I would like for the board to be more active in promoting that education and the benefits of practical shooting and tie that in. I see a lot of marketing, and I was in accounting for 18 years. I know how the bottom line works. But I see a lot of product reviews. I don't see a lot of education. Whenever an article's a year and a half old. And I mean, and that's just what was there. And that's the board's bylaws. That's your purpose. And that's where you need to be moving forward, not what latest, greatest rule we need to pass a rule about so that we can get somebody's product into a match. It needs to be about education and training range officers. The last time there was a range officer class in Oklahoma was 3 years ago whenever I went. And and I'm not dogging Troy. I love Troy's articles that he does and the DMROI, but there's a ton of people out there running a timer, and it's not, talk about competitor equity, there's not enough ROs or that education there, and that he's only one guy, he only has one crew, and that's supposed to be the board's purpose, is so that everybody's playing on the same playing field. And I think if you're redirecting where you're going, you need to check what those are and go there, not invent new things, but it's kind of lost its course. We're a lot about marketing, a lot about money, and I get the bottom line, but redirect your course to what the purpose was. That's all I'm asking.
Wow. I could say a lot, and I really have enjoyed a lot of the feedback that's been coming from your group, a little bit of a core group over here. I just want to touch on a few things. I love what you said about education. I think that that's a good thing. One thing I want to point out about range officer classes is it's your people. You request the range officer class. And there's a group of instructors out there that are more than happy to come train. So if that comes down to the club level, so I would communicate with your club people about encouraging, hey, set up the class, get it there, and that's their responsibility. I want to circle back to...
But it requires a minimum.
Well, I'll tell you what our club does, I'm in a small club, and our club says we guarantee we're going to pay for it regardless of how many people we get there. We may charge a little bit more per person, but our club actually sponsors it. So we make it happen because we think as a club that it's that important, but that's at a club level. You really have to get that. I mean, I just encourage you to encourage your club to say, hey, this is important. It's a priority. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I mean, you may not have the financial, I don't know, but we save up money, we do that. Circling back, I really want to thank all the board members because I think that they put in a lot of work. We need to remember, and speaking to Frank's point, and he was saying, democratic. We are a representative democracy, okay? The United States of America is a republic, okay? We're a representative democracy. That's what these people are. They're elected to represent us. It's our responsibility to communicate to them, all right? So I appreciate everybody who's here because that's what we're doing today. And the feedback that we were getting from the numbers, I think it was Jake was talking about the numbers. The responses, isn't that, you almost kind of feel sorry, but really, that's not that unusual. Our government is the same way. I mean, think about it. So when they get feedback from you, or you, or you, they consider your opinion to actually represent more than just you. It's actually representing 10 to 20, maybe 30, 40 people who weren't willing to speak up. So it's important that we actually do communicate. That's super important. So don't be quiet. I think we should, as a board and organization, provide better opportunities and easier ways for us to get feedback and to give feedback. It's a two-way street for all of us. We all got big opinions. Sometimes we feel our organization is just way too complicated. Okay, we got a lot of divisions, and those of us who have been here for a long time, and some of us, we remember when it was one division. Okay, the race was on. We were all shooting 45 single stacks. Then we had compensators. Then we had optics, and then we started going, well, crap. What about the guys who just want to shoot the single stack with nothing extra? So we started creating limited division and then open division, and this is how it progressed. So I don't think any of these things are bad. We're trying to be inclusive and allow other people who are just starting out to be able to enjoy the sport and really learn. I got guys in my club who come out, they just want to shoot. They want an opportunity to practice with their guns, to be practical. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a really good thing. We don't all have to come to nationals. We actually represent more people that are at our club level than we here that are competing. All right? It's not that we don't matter. It's just that we are actually a smaller portion. All right? So I want us to remember that who we're actually representing. It's everybody. All right? And as far as the organization changing in the bylaws, okay, I'm a business person. And I look at it from a perspective of, yes, we are a much larger organization, and I think what the board's really looking at here is to create a more structured framework that we can build off of. It's not to change everything in its entirety. It's to say, hey, what makes more sense for this organization to be run not as a business, but more in a professional manner, okay? Things like employees and running matches and logistics, okay, that shouldn't be on one person, being i.e. the president. So you really have to consider how much of that bonus is actually put on the president. That's too much. President should be a representative of all the people, all the shooters. They are sort of a figurehead. But the business part is something that could be operated by a professional concern. Okay, a professional CEO, for example. This board is our representation. They represent each of us as a group, and if we feed back to them, then we have a president who is also a national representative and or world to communicate with IPSC, and then we have a CEO who is independent and doesn't have a vote. They are just the business person. That's just kind of an idea that is in the back of my mind, and I don't know, the board can speak to this, but I think that that's a rough structure of what they want to do. Not completely tear apart what we are or who we are. That's not where they're coming from. They just need to create a framework that is better at operating our nonprofit so that we can really do the things and grow the sport the way that the membership does want it. Okay, so maybe it's going to be different levels of changing the bylaws, but let's not be so critical of what's going on. Understand they got a hard job, but also be willing to communicate in a productive, in a very positive manner. Even though we may disagree, we still need to explain and have our feedback. Okay, and I'm sorry, I've talked too much.
I think one thing we have to understand too is it's the average shooters that are supporting the sport. It's not all the pro shooters and all the paid shooters that support the sport. It's all the average shooters, guys like me that come here and work our ass off to put this stuff on.
I apologize, I have 3 questions. So the past couple of years have been focused on membership growth. Have there been any discussion on growth of new clubs or improvement of existing clubs? Most of the locals near me sell out and have wait lists.
That's a constant discussion on what we can do to help clubs, to get new clubs going, to help clubs find new members. It's a constant discussion with this whole group. I mean, there's very few meetings that doesn't come up in some form or another. What services can we improve on? What services can we add? I'll give an example, and this is just coming from me. You know, we've had discussions on finances, and you know that we're so focused on how much we make and that type of thing. From my personal opinion, if the end of the year comes and we are over budget, we've made more money than we thought, we messed up, because that's money that we didn't put in services we could have put out there. So, you know, the plan is for a neutral. We just need enough money to keep going and make sure that we have our life members covered and all of those expenses covered. But what can we do if we're getting more activity fees coming in this year? If we see that improving, what services can we improve on? What can we add? The membership growth over the last years have allowed us to improve our services. You know, buy equipment for live feeds, you know, streaming of the matches, all of those kind of things, the website improvements, you know, all the background technology that you don't even see, you know, we've had to improve because of where we started. And that's all ongoing all the time. But so it's really all about services and what we can do. And we continuously talk about, could we put some kind of video together? Here's how you build a club. You know, we talked about it, we haven't found a format that we feel we can make work yet. But it's been discussed many times.
So one thing, Mark, coming out of 2019 and 2020, unfortunately, there were a lot of clubs that were unable to run matches because of the situations that the pandemic that was going on. So some of the things that we did put in place was we lifted the restrictions on the requirements for the matches as far as how the people were affiliated. And we did push out there quite a few times where in October, if you start a club now, you basically are getting an entire 15 months under that time to get matches and stuff on the ground. We've changed the requirements where you can get the free RO classes when you start a new club. We've allowed clubs not to run the amount of matches that they were supposed to maintain their affiliation. The addition of adding still challenge into clubs without any additional fee for that match, for that affiliation to be on there, that was lifted a couple of years ago, which is one of the reasons why you saw Florida still challenge, because now they didn't have to pay a second affiliation. Going out and recruiting clubs, no. That is something that is a miss, that we should look at and dig in deeper to, and trying to do something to bring in new clubs. But also, the biggest miss, and it's something that we have talked about in depth over the last year and a half, was the structure of the section manual and the club manual on how to build and start a club. We took the old one that was updated in 2007 and ripped out from 182 pages down to 142 pages or something like that, and updated that information that's available on the website. But it's a manual. The next steps that we want to go to is doing a lot of the video type of training, much like you see the NRI tips and things like that, that we partnered with Shooting USA on to expand that, on how you can do that and use that stuff in clubs, to promote USPSA, to promote how to start a club, how to get a club up and going. So that is discussions that have been going on. Some of it stalled over the last year and definitely in the last 6-7 months.
The other thing, I mean, I'm one of the people, I've started a number of clubs both in this sport and others. And when I talked about this with previous people in this sport, it's always like, well, that's a section coordinator's job. And for those of you who don't know, Mark is a section coordinator where I live. And, I always thought that was a weak answer. And what we need input from other match director, section officers, is what tools we have to have. And that's a question I don't think, and we kind of talked around the issue today. We need to be able to equip, if there's a club that's interested in doing it, we need to be able to equip them with knowledge, with the ability to motivate the volunteers, and what support we can give them. And it's pretty easy for me. an unpaid volunteer to say that unpaid volunteer does it. I don't think that's the right answer. And we collectively need to work on how we can arm these new clubs to do it. And I don't have the answers. I'm just willing to work with people for it. But as someone, again, who started a lot of clubs, too many, I understand the problems, and I'd like to be able to help. But I need other people to work with me.
Yeah, I'd add to that. Again, this is just me not speaking for the board, but we're at a weird inflection point in our history as well. And this goes a little back to what you were saying. In the beginning of the sport, it was very much a participatory sport. And what that meant was if you wanted to shoot a match, you showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you built stages, and then you ran each other through them, and then you rebuilt the stages so you'd have more of them, and somebody scored them, and a week later your results came out. And I mean, yeah, it was when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But everybody pitched in. And now we're at a point where an awful lot of our membership feels like this is their entertainment dollar at work. I'm going to go out and I'm going to plunk down my whatever the match fee is, and I'm going to be entertained for a few hours, and somebody else will do all the work. And somehow we've got to get back to the point where people understand being part of the sport is really about being part of the sport. And that's building clubs, building sections, getting people plugged in, making it so that the whole sport grows rather than just the game, if that makes sense.
Okay, so the next question would be, having worked as senior match staff on area matches, section matches, local, states, financials are all over the place. Some of them are as nonprofits, some of them under someone's business license, some of them just cash under the table. Has there been any discussion on allowing areas or sections to work as a subsidiary underneath the nonprofit?
The discussion's been very,
Hi, Gary.
The discussion that surrounds that has been complicated over the years. There's a certain autonomous nature that the areas exist under that, in essence, protects the nonprofit status of the overall organization. So take, for example, any random area. If there is a tragic downfall that occurs within that area from a legal perspective, if they are operating truly under the corporate umbrella of the general organization, it doesn't just roll downhill. Now it's rolling uphill, right? And so that legal demise that they may have put themselves in spreads into the overall organization, and, can contaminate what we're trying to do from a larger perspective. The discussion happens. It's a measure of safety. It does come up every once in a while, and the general consensus tends to be that the structure we're currently under is safest for the ongoing continuity of USPSA as a whole.
It's also about some financial complexity. There was a lot of discussion 2 years ago at the in-person meeting about having the areas be legally recognized under the 501c3. But what that would mean is that everything that comes in and everything that goes out at the area level would have to be built on the corporate books, which creates accounting complexity. It also puts me as an area director in the crosshairs for a lot of things I don't want to really be in. I've got my own tax ID. I've got a day job. I really don't want to be dealing with, accountants about the cash flows for the area and those types. It's not an impossible thing. It's just not something that's, I think, super high on the list of priorities to solve right now.
Hopefully this one's going to be easy. So as a section coordinator, I have zero way to contact the members in my section. Is there a way for me to email all of the members in my section through the USPSA database?
You can contact your club contacts. They're all listed on the website. I'm a section coordinator too.
All the members.
The members it's a ladder. You got to go through the club contacts. The club presidents are your contact. That's who you want to deal with. they're the guys that stand up in front of the match every month and say, here, welcome to my match. Let's go shoot. Those are the guys who should supply you with everything you need.
But I think, Mark, this is more about like you're putting on your section match, and you want to send out some to your just the people in your section about, hey, I want to get staff for this match on this day, or this is the event we have going on, and stuff like that. So the section portal that you're at maybe has some capability to that we can kind of talk to, or the information is coming. It is a little bit of garbage out, somewhat. And there's a way on the bylaw. We can't necessarily disclose. We can't give you their contact information unless they release it to us to give it to you. So there's a way that it has to be done through the section portal that he's created.
So in other words, you're working on a method for it.
We are working on a tool to give section coordinators the ability to contact members in their section.
Without giving you their personal contact information.
One of the issues with that, though, is sections are not geographically, there's not a perfect circle that is a section. So determining which members are in your section is the challenge at this point right now. And we are working on that, but the major hurdle is who is actually in your section. Is it just the people that shoot at your clubs within your section? Or is it the people that live within a certain distance?
I would make it kind of just within the zip codes in my section.
But that's the problem, is zip codes don't go by, sections don't go by zip codes.
They could travel.
There is a club, there are clubs that are part of sections, but there's no geographical points that we can say, okay, this is a section.
Understandable.
Rick,
Yes, there's working on but there's some hurdles.
There is a method tied to the Form C that you can actually email residents in a general radius of where your match is looking for help for that. Range officers, etc. But it wouldn't cover your section. It's just like within 50 miles or 100 miles or something.
500.
Yeah.
500.
I don't know if this is formally allowed by the practice score terms of use, but you could, at least one of my sections has set up a section event in practice score and sent out notice of it and allowed people to opt in. And even though you wouldn't get the email addresses of everybody that's opted in, you would be able to send emails through practice score to everybody that signed up for the event. And that's one way, at least, of doing, sort of blast out communication.
The other thing we also have set up are each area has a business page on Facebook that as match directors and section coordinators can request to be put on there to promote their stuff as well, versus the group pages that are not under our control.
Question, anybody else?
Just one thing to add. We had an interesting discussion this morning with Corey or Sierra. They had a death.
A little louder.
I'm sorry, they had a death at one of the clubs. Rick, I guess was yours. And we were talking this morning about the fact that we're in a pretty dangerous sport. And I'm here alone, and a lot of us are, I'm sure, if something happens, you guys have no contact information for me or how to reach any type of emergency contact. And that's something we should consider if you guys are in there messing around with access to section court or access to the section folks or even match level, or we would have emergency contact information as part of what we're providing.
This goes to your question about area. I talked to Ken Nelson about being able to practice score, being able to, the header, the advertising header, just to be able to advertise to people in certain areas. He said that is possible. I don't know if he's working on that or not, but that probably would be the best thing to do is when somebody logs in from their zip code or their area, that header where I've seen tons of advertising can pop up about the area match. My question is, in terms of marketing, like what is being done to bring in new people? Like what actively, and what are we spending money on, and what's going to be done? Because my background is marketing, direct marketing, so I'm curious as to what's going on.
We partner with Shooting USA. That does promote all the national events. We've also partnered with them that have done the creation of what is USPSA, what is Social videos that are out there that have been actually viewed over 1.2 million times since it's been pushed out. We're currently working with them to do some more breakdown on what are the divisions. We have some videos that are in production with them that have to be updated because of some personnel changes. So there was some stuff that was shot that has to be changed and done. We had a partnership where we were doing some co-marketing with NSSF under the Let's Go Shooting and the plus one more event that they usually host in August. They kind of slowed down in 2020, 2021 with some of the stuff that they were doing. We have participated in NRA at the booth and kind of stuff, but we're trying to change directions in 2022 and do some different on-the-ground match, side match stuff at different outdoor events. So those are some of the things that we have out there. We promote through social media. More of that is around promotion of events that we have scheduled, or events that you guys have scheduled. We have the access to by taking your matches and putting that stuff out there to get people out on the ground. There are some other opportunities that we haven't pursued as far as getting in contact with industry partners programs that was created a couple of years ago where we sat down with some of the industry to provide cards that went into guns specific to divisions that are legal in USPSA. So you open up and pick out a card that says the gun you just bought is legal in USPSA, find out more about it. We did that with Walther when the Q5 match steel frame came out. Right then with 2,500 cards to go in the box. We saw some stuff off of that. So there's other opportunities that are out there that we can continue to pursue. Some of it is that we're limited. Right? You're looking at, we've got 12 employees. With that, of those employees, we are doing all the IT, all the match, all the social media, all the marketing. So there's a, can we bring in more people to do more stuff and return on that while all the other things that are going on that need to be addressed. So the flip side is if I bring in 20,000 new members, Matt Nash's matches already have waiting lists. If I don't have clubs for them to go to, what does it do? So there are some infrastructure things that you have to take into consideration. Yes, there's 8 million new gun owners out there. If we pick up 1% of them, what clubs are they going to go to? Right? And if everything's full, it just turns them away. So there's more than just going and putting an ad in a gun magazine or buying advertising. I mean, we get presented with stuff all the time where we can go and buy advertising. We could sponsor a NASCAR if we wanted to right now. But what's the ROI on that?
Yeah, in my experience though, is that stuff doesn't work as well as
right. So
capturing somebody's email and then.
But you guys, people say without us, so we're
well, that is. You're hired. Should have came to So yes, you have to be very smart about it, right? But some of that is when you look at just marketing, what exactly are we marketing? Are we marketing to get new members in, or are we marketing to retain members that we already have? Me personally think retention is a lot more than bringing in a lot of new people because we turn 40 to 46% of our membership annually. We need to figure that part out of it. Some of it's life changes, some of it's because they get out here and they go and buy something and they realize maybe they're not that great. Maybe they went to a club that people didn't want them at. There's other things that are going on. Life changes for people, jobs changes for people, kids are born. So we need to figure out more on retention marketing versus new member marketing. Because if I bring in a whole bunch more people, I don't have clubs for them to go to, we just lose them in it. So yes, there's conversations, working with outside companies, talking to stuff, talking within the industry, that has been going on a regular basis, yes.
So would you, I mean, once you get the club thing handled, would you be open to ideas
Yes.
on how to do it cost effectively when it won't even cost the organization?
Always open to ideas.
Okay.
Always.
I just had kind of, I don't even know if it's really a question. I guess I would say, like, I totally agree. We shouldn't be really after new membership, like adding a pile of members, because in Area 7, I'll tell you what, it's tough to get into matches. I guess I would be curious, have you guys considered like a new club package of some sort where, you know, they get discount steel, or they get, you know, you work with the partners, the companies you're, you know, working with, maybe you send, like, we have this, Lee knows him, Bill Chase, he is like the best guy ever at designing like activators that will just like, you know, run every single time and they'll last throughout the day, and sending a guy like that to teach these new clubs how to set up cool props, how to make matches awesome, you know, how to create match flow, all these things, and then offer them maybe discount targets or something like that to grow more clubs. Is there, and maybe offering, like, you know, obviously we have RO school sending like a package deal of some sort to new clubs.
That's kind of been an ongoing discussion for years, and we've tried over the years different versions of that. We've tried partnering with different vendors through the sport for discount programs for new clubs. A lot of that has been tried. I don't know how much of it's still in place.
So we do offer the burden program where vendors are allowed to, for $1,000 for a year, to be on a website that gets over 4 million hits a year, to put on their offers for clubs. We've worked with manufacturers specifically that have had offers that are on there. There's one steel manufacturer that's been up there that's ran 25% off on steel challenge sets. 0 sold by clubs. And they pulled back on it. We work with MGM on stuff. They went a different route on their programming, where they changed their pricing structure on things. So some of it is that a lot of those companies aren't that big, and they're servicing a very small population of things. We have 501 affiliated USPSA clubs and 262 steel challenge clubs. So as a business that makes not a lot of stuff, that may be too much for them to offer discounts to. For a bigger business, that may be not enough for them to offer to. But we do have conversations with them on a regular basis, yes.
Okay. One other question, just like I know as a current RO, I'll tell you what, the first time I did I'm just thinking education-wise, the first time I did my RO test, I didn't have the USPSA app, so it took me absolutely forever to go through all those questions and everything. Nowadays, I have the USPSA app, and the thing takes me like 15 minutes because I can just search, you know, the keywords, and it's easy peasy. I guess my point would be, I think it's hard for new ROs I think RO school was awesome. I loved it. George Jones, he was the best. But I think that there's not enough practical application in the test. Would there be a way to add maybe like a video portion to the test where you could see a competitor do something screwed up in the video, and then say, you know, you make the call on that test?
Yeah, we're working on several things. I'm going to address Kelly's concerns and what Danielle touched on earlier, but we constantly revamp and add stuff to our training program. One of the things that we're doing is moving some of our lecture portion to an online type thing. So you can cover some of the boring stuff in class, and we'll get more hands-on in class. The other thing that we're going to work on, independent from the Shooting USA videos, are videos like you're mentioning, where we present a scenario and say, what's your call? We're working into that with the question of the month kind of thing. And it's just a question of getting a decent video that shows you what you want to see, or shows you what we want you to see, and is a good example of what you're going to make with that call. We don't want it to be ambivalent. We don't want, even with the question of the month, we have 2 clear bullet holes and people are arguing the third one over here, right? So it's tough to get everybody on the same page and looking at the same thing. But with Jody and Kevin's help, we've been building that up. I am not a technological person, so they are. And, you know, they do a great job with that. It's a process like everything else. And it's a matter of just finding the right picture, the right video, and putting it out there. And how much volume we can put out there and still keep people's attention, right?
And also, you know, if you guys, don't forget we have NRI.org, the blog, and that's open to everyone, members, non-members.
I agree, but I think the fact that
Hey
people
guys,
are
can I
forced
just
to
ask,
do it.
we're getting comments from people all the time saying they can't hear anything being said in the audience.
If you don't have the microphone, please.
Go back to the mic. Sorry, Jody, I want people to hear what you're saying.
Okay, so you're gonna keep going?
I can.
Yes.
All right, you know, part of this is, yeah, the rule book.
Probably goes to sleep after.
It had a number on it. All right. Yeah, the rule book isn't super accessible. We know that. That's why we have the blog, where we, you know, every week you can subscribe. You get the weekly email. It says, hey, there's a new post. We post every Thursday morning, and we're making an attempt to, you know, help explain the rules and make them accessible. Do the question of the months. Have videos. You know, so we want to do more of that. And, you know, same thing with RO classes. I know a lot of people who aren't even certified yet, and they make you read the blog, and they're like, this is helping me understand the sport and stuff. So don't hesitate to promote that within your clubs if you can't get an RO class. You know, another thing is we have the rules at rules at uspsa.org emails. You know, you can email Troy, you can email me. We're more than happy to answer questions and explain things. Okay? And so, you know, we're here to help. We want to help, and we are working on a lot of things. I have several new videos we want to put on in the course, or maybe we'll put them up on the blog and do something with those. We are looking into it.
Do I need that? So to address Kelly's question as far as seminar accessibility, one of the NRI goals this year was to produce 4 self-produced seminars. A couple of years ago, we did the Academy. The first one was pretty big and pretty successful. The second one was less well attended. So again, when you're looking at return on investment, moving a bunch of instructors to some place and housing them, feeding them, doing all that good stuff is a little counterproductive if you don't get a big turnout. But one of the goals, like I said, is 4 independently produced seminars where the club doesn't have to request it or host it or anything. The issue we kind of ran into this year was where do we put them, right? So if we haven't had one in Oklahoma, then Oklahoma sounds like a good spot to me. There's a couple of other spots in the country. I have 2 more months to do that before the end of the year, but I have several instructors that are probably available. So we just need a range. That would be an appointed contact, and the rest that we can arrange. So we can do the classroom, we can do the getting the instructor there, put the sign up. It won't be free, but it won't be super expensive either because we're covering the cost anyway. So if you guys want one in Tulsa or Oklahoma City or Indian Territory or wherever you think you might want it, send me a note and let me know, especially if you haven't had one in your area in a long time. And like Kelly said, you have a lot of people that are holding the timer but aren't really certified, then we want to train those people up, okay? Because that benefits your club, it benefits your section, it benefits the whole organization. The other thing that we're working on is kind of fighting against this club culture we see. So club culture is like, it's just a local, we don't care, you can do this, you can do that. People get burnt by that, and there's been a couple of examples here where they showed up and said, well, my club lets me do that all the time. Well, they're not following the rules, right? And obviously they could use some training or education. So we are working on that. We're going to put some videos up and also the seminar. So if you have a need, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to try to plan one out.
Any more questions? Anybody else? Yes.
Sorry, dude. You guys working that side.
Yeah, he's spanky.
The blog you mentioned, I think is a really good idea. It's good to have all the information consolidated in one place. But if you guys considered putting like DNROI or whatever various specific facets of the org have their own social media channel, or at the very minimum, format them in a way that makes it easier to understand what you're working on. Because obviously, along the same lines as emails, like blogs are went the way of the dinosaur in terms of relevance and like 2011. So it's good that all the information is consolidated, but it'd be better if it was more accessible in a way that people use routinely. What is going to be all the same?
So we linked, there's an NROI.org Facebook page that links all of the blog stuff, and it's there on Facebook. We don't do much Instagram or anything else because we just haven't really gotten into it. The flip side of that is, if you're curious or interested, go to the webpage, right? The USPSA has a lot of information. A lot of people don't avail themselves of it, but it's right there for you. So go there, go to the blog. There's links all over the place. And NRI.org on Facebook is pretty much the only one that we do right now. We could expand into some of the other stuff. I don't know how productive that might be, but we'll definitely look into it.
Anybody else? Do we have anybody on the board that would like to add any comments? Well, it looks like we've wrapped this up. I want to really thank everybody for coming tonight. I hope the people that are online were able to hear enough of it to make sense of everything we did. If you're online and you have questions about what went on, feel free to email anybody on the board. And I am going to again ask everybody, talk to your area directors, email them, give them the information. We really need the feedback because we want to represent our members. And with that,